There's something strangely uncomfortable about watching a man lose control little by little instead of all at once. And if you ask me, that's exactly why this Curtis situation feels more dangerous than a normal soap villain storyline on General Hospital right now. Because this doesn't feel like evil, it feels unstable. Guys, a lot of viewers are focusing only on the surface issue, Curtis attacking Isaiah and possibly heading to prison because of it. But I think the scarier question is this: what if Curtis himself doesn't fully understand what's happening inside his own mind anymore? And yes, before we go further, this is only speculation and theory discussion. None of this is confirmed storyline information. We're just analyzing possibilities together because honestly, the show has been dropping some very strange emotional clues lately. What caught my attention first wasn't even the attack on Isaiah, it was the emotional escalation afterward. Curtis suddenly feels quicker to anger, more defensive, more explosive, the kind of behavior where somebody reacts way beyond what the situation actually deserves. And in soap operas, writers rarely do that by accident. Now, imagine this scenario for a second. Trina confronts Curtis after everything that happened with Isaiah. She's furious, hurt, disappointed. And honestly, I think many daughters would react the same way if they saw their father spiraling this badly. But here's where my theory takes a darker turn. What if Trina doesn't hold back? What if she tells Curtis that he's becoming violent, irrational, maybe even dangerous? I can already picture Curtis hearing those words and feeling completely humiliated, especially from his own daughter. A man already losing emotional control might interpret that moment as disrespect instead of concern. And that's where things could become horrifying, because I genuinely think there's a possibility Curtis snaps and slaps Trina. Even writing that feels uncomfortable. But if the writers want to push Curtis into full tragedy territory, that moment would absolutely do it. Not because he hates Trina. Actually, the opposite. The saddest part would be Curtis realizing too late what he just did. That's the kind of scene soap operas use when they want the audience to stop seeing a character as simply angry and start seeing them as broken. And if that happens, everything changes. Especially for Portia. Let's be honest here. Portia has defended, protected, and justified Curtis more times than most people would tolerate. But there's a line mothers do not forgive when it comes to their children. If Portia witnesses Curtis hurting Trina emotionally or physically, I don't think she'll see him as her husband anymore. I think she'll see him as a threat. That's a completely different emotional battlefield. I actually think one of the most intense possibilities would be Portia trying to attack Curtis herself in that moment. Not because she suddenly becomes violent, but because rage and fear together can make people do reckless things. And here's where Isaiah becomes important again. Imagine Isaiah stopping Portia and telling her Curtis is already going to prison anyway. Imagine Isaiah reminding her that Curtis attacked him first and now possibly traumatized Trina too. That conversation alone could change everything between Portia and Isaiah, because shared anger creates dangerous alliances in soap operas. Now, let me bring up the theory that's been stuck in my head all day. What if the accident involving Jordan and Curtis caused neurological damage nobody discovered yet? I know that sounds extreme, but think about it carefully. Soap operas love hidden medical twists, brain injuries, tumors, nerve compression, personality changes. We've seen versions of this before, and honestly, it would explain a lot. Curtis becoming more impulsive, more aggressive, less emotionally regulated. The sudden, violent reactions, the inability to calm down once anger starts building. What if there's pressure on part of his brain affecting emotional control? Even scarier, what if Curtis himself senses something is wrong, but refuses to admit it because he sees it as weakness? Guys, men in soap operas often self-destruct before admitting vulnerability. That's why this theory feels believable to me emotionally, even if it sounds dramatic medically. But now we get to the darkest part of this entire speculation, the prison storyline. Because I don't think prison would end the danger around Curtis. I think prison could actually begin something worse. Here's the detail that keeps bothering me. Portia is a doctor. Isaiah is also a doctor. These are two people with medical knowledge, emotional motivation, and potentially growing hatred toward Curtis. That combination is terrifying. And before anyone misunderstands me, I'm not saying this will happen. I'm saying the show could explore the idea of revenge crossing moral boundaries. Imagine Portia reaching a point where she no longer wants justice. She wants permanent removal. That's different. A prison sentence might not feel satisfying enough if she believes Curtis destroyed Trina emotionally, especially if Trina starts withdrawing, crying constantly, or blaming herself after their confrontation. A mother watching her daughter suffer can become incredibly dangerous. Now, add Isaiah into the equation. This is where my suspicion really grows. Isaiah may publicly act calm and rational, but deep down, I don't know if he truly forgives Curtis after being attacked. Sometimes the quietest characters carry the darkest resentment. And if Isaiah secretly believes Curtis is becoming unstable and violent, would he eventually convince himself that removing Curtis protects everyone else? That's the moral gray area soap operas love exploring, not evil people. Desperate people convincing themselves they're doing the right thing. And honestly, Poison would fit that kind of storyline perfectly. Quiet, hidden, difficult to trace, especially with medical knowledge involved. I can already imagine viewers debating for weeks whether Portia and Isaiah crossed the line or whether Curtis pushed them there emotionally. That's what makes this theory so compelling to me. Nobody comes out clean, not Curtis, not Portia, not Isaiah. Even Trina would carry emotional scars from all of it. And the saddest part, this entire disaster may have started from something Curtis never even understood was happening inside his own brain. That's why I think the potential brain injury angle matters so much. It transforms the story from simple violence into tragedy. Because if Curtis is sick instead of purely cruel, then suddenly every future decision becomes morally complicated. Should he be punished? Treated? Forgiven? Feared? That's the kind of messy, emotional storytelling that keeps people glued to this show. So now I really want to ask you guys something. Do you think Curtis could actually slap Trina during an explosive confrontation? Or would the writers never take it that far? And what about Portia and Isaiah? If Curtis keeps spiraling, do you think they might secretly decide prison isn't enough punishment? Or do you think this entire situation is actually building toward a shocking medical diagnosis instead? I honestly feel like we're heading towards something much darker than viewers expect. And if this theory turns out even partially true, the fallout could destroy multiple families at once. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.